Howdy. Welcome to Ausgrave Royalty. I am Justin. Welcome to another wild card kind of video. This one, maybe not as fun as some of the others, but more serious, more essential, more grim. Don't mean to scare y'all, but yeah, powerful subject. So we're going to be talking about narcissism and attachment theory. And this is a big subject for me. It's my channel, so I'm going to talk about it. And it's actually really difficult to talk about it. Because narcissism as a term has been so incredibly overused. It's that the real narcissists with a capital N are like blending in. They've been diluted. They have like a cloak over them so that if anybody calls anybody narcissistic or a narcissist, it's perceived as like childish name calling ad hominem. It's just like, oh, everyone's, narcissistic. Everyone's out for themselves in some way. Therefore, so the saying goes, real narcissists don't exist, really. This has been, the 21st century has been an amazing time for narcissists, like actual narcissists. And I believe that I'm not a professional, but through my research, my own independent research and my own experience, everyone's kind of on a spectrum. That's the best way to think about it. 0 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, narcissistic tendencies. We all fall somewhere on it. But if you're like 6 or above, there's a demonstrable behavioral problem that you're probably exhibiting that gets you into the clinical territory. 10 out of 10 would be super rare, super obvious, and would alienate everybody around them and probably burn out. It's those like 7, 8 out of 10s that are the unsung villains of the world that are going from workplace to workplace, from family to family, from friend group to friend group, from love relationship to love relationship, and just leaving in their path emotional wreckage of other human beings. That was a speech. You know what they remind me of? They're like vampires. Imagine calling somebody a vampire these days. It'd be like eye rolling, oh, they're a myth, aren't they? Well, what if vampires actually existed? This is how I feel about narcissists. Like, they're out there, and I've encountered them, and I've been bitten. Minus, I'm not turning into one, but I hope not. But, you get the metaphor. They've gained the power of day walking, and they can blend in. But once in a while, like, if if they touch silver, maybe they have a moment where they accidentally bump into some silver and get burned, metaphorically. Then you're like, oh, I see. They might be a narcissist. Probably are. Yeah, that's kind of out there. But I wanted to mention it because so there's this thing called something called a Cassandra Complex. And I heard this years ago, and I may have it completely wrong. But Cassandra was a figure in mythology who gained the power to tell the future, but lost her voice. So she wanted to communicate things that she clearly saw to others or to reach out for help or whatever, but she couldn't. She had no voice, right? This is what... It's sad. It's really tragic. Everyone who's had a serious encounter with a narcissist or people with high narcissistic tendencies, I'm not going to keep repeating that double phrase there. When I say narcissist, I just mean somebody high on the spectrum. So just to paraphrase. Not the DSM-5, whatever, clinical version. I'm just talking about somebody with high narcissistic tendencies. So, but when you're a victim, and I do believe there are true victims exist. I'm about 7.5 out of 10 on radical accountability. Like some people say, you're responsible for everything that happens to you, literally everything. The weather, oh, you must have asked for it subconsciously. Like getting hit by a random car. Hey, there are some things like you are a true victim. And if you're bitten by a vampire, when society has been laughing at you for like believing in vampires or like that they actually exist or whatever, you're an actual victim. Like, shout out to the victim. No more, I know the word victim gets thrown around a lot in the wrong way, but victims of narcissists are actual victims as much as people getting ripped apart by vampires are victims, So I say that because that human emotional wreckage that they leave behind, it's a very lonely existence. Because you've been bitten by a vampire and nobody believes in vampires. So it's very difficult for people to take your pain, your legitimate pain, seriously. And narcissists, they have plenty of bad qualities that I could blame them for. But one thing they are actually honestly, legitimately ignorant of is this special searing pain that they leave behind, which is not only do you suffer emotional damage, but you're also, you're violated and alienated from the people who actually care about you, because the people who hear about your experience are just, it takes a minute for them not to roll their eyes and be like, well, I think they're just, this person is just bitter. I mean, they're name calling the person. This victim is calling him or her a narcissist. Therefore, it must just be petty bitterness name calling and not something serious. You know what I'm saying? So, I realized that when it happened to me, I was having to convince people that I'm close to that normally take me seriously, kind of fade off and be like, is the vampire in the room with you now? Kind of thing, Like, narcissists, really? Everyone's narcissistic, blah, 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 blah. So kudos to the narcissists. Not only do they do the damage, but they alienate you from potential healing with your doctors, with your support group, so to speak. Brilliant. So that's a special kind of hell that you can enter on top of the hell that you experience directly as a victim of narcissism. I wanted to lead with that because to show you what the stakes are. Steak, nice vampire pun there. But so what do I actually think narcissism is? And this doesn't help my case, right? Because it's very hard to define, in my opinion. I'm not an expert, but it's kind of like you know it when you see it. Okay, I've mentioned this before. I think only a certain group of individuals are prey to narcissists. It's like vampires only go after those victims with that sweet, sweet blood, I think that the blood of agreeableness, and I'm high in agreeableness, and that's frowned upon as a man in society. I've mentioned this in other videos, and I'll talk more about that later. But people mistake kindness for weakness in men, and people think you're feminine and all that, and it's a whole thing. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's something I own and I prize about myself. It's kind of like, I've used this metaphor before, but you're like a bard in an RPG. You're not the highest DPS, and you're not reviving or healing anybody indirectly, but you make everyone more powerful, and you make the party flow, and everything easier, you know? So that was a tangent, but agreeable people typically are the first kinds of people to like let people in. And another vampire metaphor, let me in. Got to invite them in. There's a lot of parallels here, actually. But yeah, they just they get in, and there's all these different types of narcissism. There's covert narcissists. Apparently, there's grandiose, spiritual narcissists, malevolent narcissists. Those are the ones that are like slash your tires and stuff. And these types are academic, and I'll link to various channels below about like more details if you want them. I'm not too concerned with those distinctions. I'm more concerned with the aftermath. And another weird thing, so more about what narcissism is. It's true, bald, shameless selfishness and emotional greed is how I would put it. So greed, like, I want more of the pizza than you, so to speak. It's not, and it's an astonishing level of ignorance. It reminds me of like a Socratic evil in philosophy. Socrates said something like, there's not necessarily so much thing as evil. More evil is just a lack of understanding of what's good. If you understood what's good, you can't do evil, which is why like knowledge was big. There's that element to it. It's an astonishing self-absorption cloaked in ignorance. It's like, there's a thing where, and this makes it infuriating because you want to blame them, but you also know that their condition is the result of abuse of some way, that their narcissism was erected to protect themselves from abusers in their childhood. And yet, I don't give a shit. They're scum, and they're wreaking havoc, and I don't you got to be wary. We got to be wary. We agreeable people out there got to be wary. So I'm doing a very poor job of defining what actually a narcissist is, and I take full responsibility of that. You more know it as an effect. It's when you feel like your boundaries have been breached, like you're being taken advantage of, and they don't seem to understand what you're doing for them, and you're putting in 10 and they're putting in 10 and then negative 10 and then 10 and then negative 10, and you're like, am I crazy or are they crazy? Who is it? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Asshole over here, And when I learned about narcissism, and again, I'll link to the actual experts on defining all this, I look back on my life and I'm like, oh, wow, there really are quite a few that I've encountered. It must be that sweet, sweet, agreeable blood, But I would say that I was recently a victim of a really bad case, and it sent me like, I was emotionally distraught, but I'm not usually emotionally distraught because I have a good amount of self-knowledge. I mean, I'm into philosophy. I'm all about self-improvement, self-knowledge, all that. I've listened to Stefan Molyneux for years, and this still happened to me. Again, it's like being prepared for vampires, but until you actually encounter one and they bite you, you're like, oh, okay, now I know what this is. I guess I should be blessed that I survived. No, it didn't turn out worse, but in the moment it was very bad. And it was bad not for the potency of the emotional distress, but for the self-alienation and the confusion. You don't know what happened to you, or I didn't know what happened to me. Like, I'm really upset and perturbed, but I don't know why. And I'm oversimplifying here, but that was the sensation. And I'm not used to not knowing why. So it was like a dagger in a weak spot that I didn't know I had, like a blind spot. And like when somebody hits you and you're not expecting it, it hits like 10 times worse. That's sort of like what occurred to me recently. So it sent me down this rabbit hole of like learning about narcissism. And I don't remember how I arrived at it, but I did discover it. So yeah, I wanted to share that, and I think it's an epidemic. Like, now that I understand it, I see it everywhere. I see narcissist people. The sixth sense. And I guess I'm grateful it happened to me. I'm at that point. But it makes you think, like, it was a really intense experience for me. And it makes me wonder, like, maybe some experiences, like, aren't actually worth experiencing, even for the gem that comes out of it. Because I think permanent damage can be done. Yeah. So I'm kind of rambling here. But another thing, like when I was looking into narcissism and how they operate, I noticed like in the literature, for some reason, everyone seems to think that only men can be narcissists. Not from my experience. And as a matter of fact, the most potent, the most ignorant narcissist I've encountered has been a woman. And I think like through the various channels, I think the literature, like they always use the pronoun he. Look at me, I'm angry about pronouns, but it is interesting that like it's like, oh well, when he does this and he does that, the narcissist, blah blah blah. It's like, women can be narcissists as well, FYI. Anyway, just throwing that out there. And so we've been hearing the term gaslighting a lot in like on the interwebs. It's a phrase that's thrown out a lot. But it really is a thing. Here's how gaslighting is like, it's like the sword and board. It's like the bread and butter weapon of the narcissist, okay? What they do is they punch you in the face and are utterly unaware. Sorry. And when you say you punched me in the face, they say, no, you clearly your head ran into my fist. How could you do that to me? Why would you throw your head into my fist like that? What are you trying to do? You're an idiot. Why would you do that? And I'm like, you're like, no, that's what's called a punch. You punched me in the face. No, why would you say that? That's not what happened at all. You clearly threw your head right into my fist. And that's what gaslighting is. It's like, but they honestly believe it. They're not faking it. You can't improv gaslighting. If it is improv, it's not gaslighting. I don't care if you're Gary Oldman, who I think is like the greatest actor of all time. You can't replicate because they believe it. They honestly believe that you are the type of person in that moment that would just wildly throw your head into their fist. And it's a metaphor. Like that's to the extent how they twist things. And because like they believe it, that they'll go to their grave and they'll tell everybody they know. It's called a smear campaign in the literature, and what are called flying monkeys, where they turn everyone in your network against you by like saying, yeah, the other day Justin just randomly threw his head wildly into my fist, and then he said I punched him. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? And the friend is like, that doesn't sound like Justin. Oh, trust me, I know it doesn't sound like him, blah, blah, blah. But there it is, I couldn't believe it either, that he'd be that, crazy. And they do shit like this, and they take little chomps out of you, and then what their dream, the goal is for you to flip out and be like, I didn't do any of that shit. And then once you do that, they're like, see how crazy you are? See what you did? They're like method trolls. Like, I play Overwatch every once in a while, and oh my God, the trolling is insane. And, if you're not aware of it, you're going to fall into everything. That's another rant. I have another video about that sort of thing. But it's like if a troll legitimately believed what they were trolling. Yeah, and that's why, like, you start to doubt yourself, like, us agreeable people, because we're always like, we're here for you. Like, we're trying to, agreeable people want everyone to be their best. If they win, we win. Like, we live vicariously through others' failures and successes, which is why we struggle with boundaries. We tend to, it's called enmeshment. When you're like too absorbed with the other person's identity, that you're like, oh, I exist too. I have preferences. I forgot to, say that. So yeah, you gotta be on guard. Anyway, that's sort of been my experience with how narcissists behave, and it's a special kind of hell that they put you in. And yes, I say that they put you in like I'm using victim language here. Again, if you are not initiated to vampire attacks, you have Justin's permission to be a victim of a vampire attack. But after that, now that you are aware and you know what you're dealing with, now maybe not so much. But like I said, they live in the shadows like vampires. They're protected by society's minimizations, like I mentioned earlier. And yeah, what I've heard is like narcissists, they forgot along the way, or were never told that where power exists in a relationship, connection cannot exist in that relationship. So they're switched on to the power mode. Like, how do I put you down and raise me up? It's not about connecting. And I'm like, I'm a big like, let's connect. Connecting is what we're on the planet to do. It's the most sophisticated behavior that exists in the universe. Because, sorry for the rant here, but the brain is the most sophisticated organ in the entire universe. And for two brains to connect and come together and like actually intimately connect, that's a miracle in terms of the universe, into the vast emptiness of space. We're here to connect people. And narcissists are perversions of connecting. They will use you. And the inner Kantian in me squirms at this. I don't like Kant much, but he talked about the kingdom of ends, how human beings are a kingdom of ends in themselves, that it's immoral to merely use people as something and not treat them with their full autonomy as human beings. I won't get into a lot of that here, but I think it applies to narcissists, that they see like, okay, how do I use this person to raise myself up? And they call it narcissistic supply in the literature. Again, like vampires need blood, narcissists need supply. And they feed on you and they gain power, like some sort of charade power. It's like, it's a lot like a video game. It's like they're treating everyone on their video game team like shit, and they forgot. Like, they don't understand, this is a game, right? Like, the point is to get along and have fun, And to any of my online gamers right now, you're thinking, geez, that's, we lost that a long time ago on online gaming. Everything is toxic now, and it really is. Again, I'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, I just wanted to share those thoughts. And I mentioned Hermes before on the channel. Hermes is actually, besides being the messenger god, he's also the god of boundaries. And I just bring that up just as a fun fact because boundaries are the most powerful weapon that agreeable people can wield. And it can make you a force of nature. And that's the one path that we need to be on as agreeable people. Forging strong boundaries. Build that wall, And I want to end the video by talking about attachment styles briefly, and I'll devote more of a video to this, but I'll have a link below, but check out the Personal Development School channel, PDS. And it's not directly about narcissism, but it is about boundaries, and boundaries are the silver to narcissists. With healthy boundaries, you'll encounter less narcissistic abuse. And when you combine the techniques that are talked about on in PDS, the Personal Development School, you'll be able to really get that silver you need. And Thais Gibson, brilliant, sweet lady, runs it. Like in the on the internet, there's all these like bearded rip dudes that are like, I'm gonna drop truth bombs, But this sweet lady has shook me to the core way many more times than anyone with a beard has. Be prepared. It's not easy if you take it seriously. But yeah, she wrote this book, Attachment Theory, Thais Gibson. And she basically goes over the kind of attachment styles, anxious attachment, which I have a streak in. Again, this is on a spectrum, and people can have multiple. You can take a test of hers online. Anxious attachment, fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant, and the secure attachment style. So I want to, again, this channel is all about sending up that flare to where the good ideas are. And she has brilliant, brilliant ideas, and she articulates them way better than I could. But I will talk about them more on this channel. Last thing, Dr. Les Carter, his channel Surviving Narcissism, best channel for learning more about this stuff. I'll have a link to him below. Maybe one day I'll interview him if he's open to it. I really like that. Anyway, battery's almost done, so I'll catch y'all later. Thanks for sticking in with me. Hope y'all enjoyed the video and got some value out of it. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.